knowing about the EEA can help us distinguish our real needs from contrived needs. And that's a statement aimed at advertising, right? So if you have a knowledge of what was available to us during the Stone Age and know that all of our needs were somehow satisfied in that condition, you can look at the things they're trying to sell us on TV and say, wait a minute, I don't really need that. And know with a scientific certainty versus kind of a philosophical, minimalist concept. When we know about the deep past, we can analyze the root causes of our modern problems. There are a lot of band-aid solutions nowadays that don't take into account where we came from. We're looking at something like obesity, right? Big problem today, we call it an epidemic. Do we blame soda? Do we blame Coca-Cola? Or do we blame our transition to a grain-based diet, which has kind of led up to this point, which occurred, 10,000 years ago? Looking, right down the tree. We've got a big bush of problems. They all kind of stem from each other, and knowing about the past can help us get to the root of things. And when we recognize deviations from this, we can say, wait a minute, that's a deviation, stay away from it, or venture into it carefully. I'll talk about the Stone Age baseline in another slide. I think we should make a Bill of Human Rights based on science and biology versus religion and philosophy. These are some ideas for a biological Bill of Rights. These are things that we've had for millions of years, and we've just now lost. These are things that we should feel entitled to because they're the conditions that we evolved under. Things like free and direct access to food, water, fuel, and shelter. How many people in our so-called wealthy culture, affluent culture, have free access to food, have free access to clean water? I don't know of anybody. Nobody is free anymore from man-made toxins and pollutants. Hunter-gatherers had communal control of the immediate environment. If there was a land use activity that they didn't like, they could, stop it. A buddy of mine has some property adjacent to some wooded land. Vagans just bought it, and they cut in a logging road, right next to him. And there's nothing he can do about it. We call this a democracy, but we cannot control our immediate environment. I can vote for a representative to have a seat in Congress, but if my neighbor wants to do something that pollutes my drinking water, I don't have a lot of recourse. Control of the immediate environment is something really crucial that we've lost. And complete sovereignty, we used to live in egalitarian bands. And we sense that we need that freedom. And in small hunter-gatherer groups, it's impossible for anybody to be in charge. If you want to lord over people, they'll go away. They don't have to live with you. And there's really no way to amass wealth in a hunter-gatherer group. And so I think the need that people feel for freedom stems from the fact that we evolved in these egalitarian bands. We're not like ants. We didn't evolve to live in hierarchical structures where there's one big queen calling all the shots. It's not natural for us. We've come up with all kinds of philosophies about that, but we've got really solid footing in biology too. So we've covered needs unknown, and we cover some ways that we can learn about what we need. And needs not met, we all know about the third world. I've actually never been to a third world country, but I can read about people crowd into a garbage dump to make a few pennies recycling trash. But I think it's crucial that we recognize we've got equally heinous deprivations in the first world, right here.
That's my word.
That's where you were.
That's correct.
Yeah. So it's harder to see here. I mean, we're just up to our armpits in wealth and energy and material goods, have anything we want, but we're making sacrifices. I came up with the theory that there is a hierarchy of needs, right? You've got to have oxygen first. Once you've got air, you might want some water to drink. You might want some shelter. You might want some food, and it goes on and on from there. Like you have company. You have a sense of community. Kind of weighing at the bottom. Things have to be met in order, and in our society, we're cheating our higher needs for our more basic ones. And what I mean by that is we are trading in things like our family time for things like shelter and food. We're trading things like our relationship in the community for the same things, for shelter and food. Like starving people, the first priority isn't to play, right? Playing is a need we have. We need play to maintain our complex brains. But they're going to be focused on food. We're the same way. We are working, how many hours do you work in this place?
40 a week.
40 a week.
21 years.
And I would guess that most of your income goes toward your housing, toward your shelter.
Housing really has.
And for the right to exist in this society, to have a space that's yours.
You have an exit strategy.
Good. This presentation is about the exit strategy that I'm dreaming of. And another thing that illustrates scarcity is that we've got purchase substitutes for everything. If you're lonely, you can buy a TV. If you're feeling kind of spiritually dead, you can join a mega church. If you can't spend time with your partner, you can buy them fancy jewelry. You can buy substitutes. And that's just another indication of scarcity. So even the very rich, who maybe aren't spending most of their income on housing and food and fuel, because of their initial investment in that, are kind of stuck in a system where they have to pay for everything now, and they're meeting all of their needs with purchase substitutes as best as they can. Yeah, and the supply and demand paradigm of capitalism that we've got that creates scarcity. If a low supply means a higher price, then there's incentive to lower the supply, right? So you're not going to see Monsanto, guerrilla gardening food everywhere and making food freely available. It's better for them that there be fewer resources for everyone. Another reason that we've got scarcity on our hands is that governments and corporations are just parasitizing our financial lives. Every dollar we spend has taxes on it that's going to support other people. And not just taxes, there's profits. And we know that all of our hard work, the money we make, some portion of it is siphoned off to feed other entities. So how should we meet our needs? We should realize that the economy is a recent contrivance. This is something we made up, at 1145, not very long ago. The way that we met our needs for millions of years, and the way that all other living things meet their needs, is through ecology. And ecology is the system by and for life. Ecology is built of relationships, and that's crucial. Relationships are different than the way we're presently making our living, right? The way we make our living, we're acquiring these really object resources. We're not dealing with our relatives like we would be in ecology. Like when I walk up to a berry bush and I pick a berry, first of all, that berry bush is another living thing, which means it's related to me. We're relatives. Another thing is that berry has needs, I have needs, and we're working together. So by eating the berry, and hopefully I dig a cat hole somewhere in the woods, I'm helping that berry spread its genes, and the berry is helping me by feeding me. It's a relationship. And ecology is damn resilient. All it needs is sunlight to keep going. Our system, not so much. We need a whole lot of fossil fuel just to keep it going. We need tons more energy than ecology needs. And it's alive. There are a few things that people need that they come from abiotic resources, like we use stones, for various things. But most of what we need comes from other living things that we have relationships with. I think for our hunter-gatherer ancestors that was really obvious because they were so dependent on each other. They needed to have very healthy relationships with their bands so that they could survive. And it wouldn't have been too hard to extend that to the other living things around them that were very, very powerful forces in their lives. If you don't have a good relationship with your living environment, you're screwed. And that way of life. And we need to recognize that we survive by relationships. And I'll illustrate our present relationship in the next slide. Ecological relationships are not much different from human relationships. They can be abusive. They can be non-communicative. They could be too exclusive. You can draw all kinds of parallels. You pick an unhealthy human relationship, healthy human relationship, you can find a counterpart in ecology. So, I think some of us don't recognize it, but we still are in a relationship with the living environment. It's just not a healthy one. The pictures kind of speak for themselves. Look at the way we treat livestock. Look at the way we treat children. Look at the way we treat ourselves by abusing substances. The way we treat people in other countries. The way we treat the soil. I put the soil in the background because I think that's one of our original abuses, and I think it led to some of the others in the long term. What is a healthy relationship anyway? So, universally, if we look at an abusive relationship, and this applies to an abusive human relationship, our relationship with soil, with whatever, objectification. When we start seeing trees as being dollars in the bank versus our living relatives with needs similar to our own, we're objectifying. We're turning living entities into materials. Another sign of abuse is annihilation, and this seems obvious, but given that our current culture does not allow certain species to exist, we are annihilating other species. That's obviously not a healthy relationship. This one is kind of counterintuitive, but extreme dependence can indicate an unhealthy relationship.